Hello everyone, this is your coach Sudi. We're going live today with Dylan. Dylan is a coach and we're going to talk about fear and how to overcome our fears. Isn't that amazing, guys? Hi everyone on Instagram. Who do we have here? Murj Makian. Hi love. Hi Kurosh. Hello Yasmin. Hi Shahzad John. Hello Afsha. Hi Saharnaz. Shadi. Hello. Hey guys, I'm also going live on Facebook, Sudi Burnett. So if you guys want to join me on Facebook, you can do that too. I'm just going to say hello a few minutes. I started a little bit earlier because I want us to warm up and get ready for our guest to welcome him when he gets here. Okay, so hi Fariba, hi Softball Over number 33, hi Silk, what a beautiful name, Silk. Hello Zore, hi Asi, it's so great to have you all here. Hi Meh, hello, how lovely to see you guys. Isn't it great, guys, that we have this like family, like tribe, and we can be together, we can talk with one another, we can learn from one another. Isn't that amazing? Yes. Hi Farzana June, hi Fikri, who else is here? Hello Asin, hello. Hey guys, before Dylan gets here, tell me, where are you guys from? Tell me so I can know you guys, get to know you guys a little bit better. And can we do this, guys? Please pay attention. Can you all tell me, where are you from and how old you are? I mean, where do you live? That's what I mean. Where do you live and how old are you? So I can kind of get an idea. Ohio, softball is from Ohio. How old are you, love? Okay, Ohio. Yes, well, who else? Tell me where you're from, what country or city. From Tehran, 22. That's fantastic. Hi, love. That's Ryan. Ryan, how are you doing? Sahar is checking you out. Sahar is my assistant, one of my assistants. And she said that you're doing amazingly and you haven't changed, you haven't removed your old song. Virginia, Susan, hi Susan. Virginia 57. Silk is from Los Angeles, great. 50 Orange County, hello, welcome. I live in Los Angeles, 47, fabulous. I got so many people from here. Farimbo is 20, let me see. Tehran, 58. Silver is LA, 27. Fantastic. Who else? Okay, who wants to join a live? Don't you guys think we have a few minutes? How about, hi Firuza John, hi Lovey. Okay, our host guest is here. Hi Dylan, you can send me a request. I'm just warming everybody up till you get here. Yes, send me a join request, Dylan, please. There we go. Join live with Dylan. Yes, Irvine 51, Zanjan 60, beautiful. Well, hello, Dylan. How are you?
Doing well, how are you?
Dylan, I need to hear you. We can't hear you very well. Can you somehow, I don't know what you need to do to use a mic or whatever. Hi, Sarah John. I love you too. It's so great to have everybody here. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Hey, Sarah. Okay, yes, I can hear. This is much better.
How's that?
Well, Beautiful. Welcome, Dylan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're great, and we're so excited to have you here. Tell our followers, where are you from?
I'm from Wisconsin, United States. Pretty cold nowadays, but
Woo!
loving it.
Yes, I've been there. Oh my God, it's so cold. How cold is it today?
Let's check. 27 degrees, but I'm sure it probably feels like 15 to 20.
Okay. I'm so happy to have you here. So, Dylan, without any further ado, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you end up becoming a coach? And then we get to our subject, which is fear today.
Sure. I'm a life coach. More recent than anything. I've been a firearms instructor. I've been in the military for, oh boy, just about 13 years now. Um, I'm a big mental health advocate on TikTok. I've got somewhere over 330,000 followers on TikTok, which is absolutely incredible.
Woo!
Just so grateful for so many people to care about what I have to say, to the world. Realistically, I'm just here to help people. My goal jumping on Instagram, jumping on TikTok, YouTube is just to step out of, the comfort zone and the taboos of talking about mental health, talking
Yeah,
about suicide, and advocating for people that don't really have a voice. So that's a little bit about me.
that is beautiful. So, could we ask your age? Can we get a little more personal too with you?
Absolutely. I'm about to turn 31 in about a month.
Beautiful. And what's your birth sign, Dylan?
Uh, Aquarius? Is that,
Woo!
yeah.
Yes, so this is Europe is coming up, Aquarius, great, beautiful. Yeah, that all makes sense, right? Why you got into coaching and what the
Yeah.
path that you're taking and why so many people are interested to hear what you have to say. Hi, hello, there's everybody saying hello to you. Yes, okay. So let's get started, Dylan. Where do you want to take us today?
Discussions about fear, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So an interesting thought came to my mind because I was thinking about this discussion for the past few days. You know, a lot of the movies kind of bring up this idea that the greatest fear is fear itself. And I want to kind of challenge that. I want to say that rather than it being fear itself, I'd rather say that the greatest fear that we have is ourselves. Right? We are afraid of the the vast potential for evil, the vast potential for bad, the vast potential for failure, or any of that sort, right? Like we are afraid of ourselves
Hmm.
because we are both good and evil. We are both happy and sad. We are both angry and calm. We are all of these things, but we are afraid of one and looking to another.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts?
That is amazing. And you're absolutely right. And so, tell you a little bit about my background. I started over 30 years ago as a personal trainer, and I was really into health and nutrition and blah, blah, blah. And eventually, I got diagnosed with OCD. And I start getting into reading about psychology, and I studied psychology to find out about the brain and the mind and all this stuff. And then I switched to energy healing, and
Yep.
also some part of me that was hidden as a shaman, and that part started coming up. I went to Peru with many ayahuasca journey, in the jungle with the shamans and all that stuff. So, but basically, when I got this message, kind of intuitive message that I should change to more towards energy healing, I was really hesitant and I was resisting to the message for literally like 3 months. And that was exactly the fear. It's like suddenly I got this light bulb that, oh my God, I'm so much bigger than who I think I am with all my programming. I wasn't good enough, I was
Yep.
OCD, I was blah, blah, blah. So it was the fear when the light shine on us and we realize that we are not the mind ego, we are not all these identifications that the ego tell us, and it's so scary to see really how bright we can shine and who we are. So yeah, that's my point of view.
My question for you is how much, and this is something that I talk about frequently, how much of that fear literally came from your diagnosis and how the judgment of that diagnosis affected you?
Well, here's the deal. Like, I wasn't aware of it, but at the time, it was my boyfriend. He was Norwegian, and his personality was very narcissistic. He
Sure,
was
sure.
constantly putting me down. He was a pilot. He was at age 23. He was a pilot. He was like very smart, very sharp, but he was like beating me up mentally and emotionally constantly that this was wrong. And it was like all the time his lens was on what wasn't working or what was wrong with me.
Right.
Like I was way hyper, I was too overactive. It was so his lens was always like he was pinpointing everything that wasn't good about me. So that's how it started. And then he said to me, I bet you're OCD. He brought that up.
Yeah.
And then he went ahead and he got an appointment for me with a neurologist. And then I went with it and they said, yes, you're ADD or ADHD and you're obsessive compulsive disorder and you should be going on medication. But that was the point that I back up and I said, no, I don't want to take medication.
Good for you.
Yeah, so I said no, but I'm going to educate myself more. So I have to
Yeah.
tell you, Dylan, that was more empowering for me at that point because of the decision that I
Right.
made, which I think it was the right decision not to go by it, not to start taking medication to numb myself. And then I started to really understand about the brain and the mind.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, fear is a choice, and in part, your boyfriend really made his choice in pushing his fear onto you rather than addressing. He made the easy route of saying it's your fault, and blame actually comes from a lot of fear rather than coming from this place of I want to fix the problem. It's not. It's, blaming someone else is not fixing the problem. Fixing the problem is addressing your side of the problem and then working with someone else to address both sides of the problem. It's not blaming someone else and then just leaving it there. You have to fix yourself because it can't be me, right? That's narcissism, clearly. And I love that you empowered yourself to make a decision other than what the doctors told you, right? Because I mean, that is so profound, and so many people don't get that opportunity or have that understanding to make that choice. There's almost this fear around what I should do next, and rather than dig into the research and empower yourself to make your own decision, you look at what someone else tells you and you do it. And in part, like, I'm not doing much differently on social media. Sometimes I'm telling you, like, literally go find help, but maybe that's not the right thing for you, right? I don't want people to listen to me. I want people to understand me. Like, take a moment and understand what I'm trying to get to you before you make a decision for yourself. As a life coach, I'm not telling you what to do.
Yeah.
I'm helping you empower yourself to make the decision that's best for you, because I don't have your context. I don't have your ideas. I don't have your memories. I don't have any of the context that applies to you. You do. So make your own decision. I'll just help you get there. I'll help you rationalize it, make it logical, and make it more understanding. But you've got to do this for yourself. And I think a lot of people don't have that understanding. They don't have that big picture, 30,000-foot perspective, looking down on themselves and realizing nobody else knows who I am, right? I haven't told my story. I haven't told people who I am. I'm just me, right? And I think people are afraid to get to that point with people, and give themselves and be a part of themselves, empower themselves, rather than just doing the easy thing, which is listening to someone else and doing what they say. But that doesn't get you anywhere.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm gonna add another part because many I think it was like 25 or maybe almost the same time that I got into a major car accident and I had a near-death experience. And when I got conscious again, I realized that I was in a major car accident, and then I lost my voice for a couple of months. And so the first thing that happened, the chiropractor told me that I was like, my whole vertebrae from the top to the bottom has twisted, and I'm going to become a vegetable from then on. And I was like, all this thing. And the picture that he was painting, Dylan, it was like, I was at the second I lost myself. I was like, oh my God. So like, I'm going to be disabled and it's going to be blah, blah, blah. But then when I left the hospital, it was like something in me that I was like, no, I don't want you to do anything with me. And when I left, I needed a few days to integrate what happened to me.
Right.
Like I was shaking internally from the trauma and that stuff. But it was a point of integration for me that I asked myself, am I going to believe what the doctors and everyone is saying to me? Or am I going to say, and I'm not going to accept any of that, and I'm just going to create my own reality? And I chose the second part. I said, I'm not going to listen to any of these, and I'm going to see myself healthy, and I'm just going to and after that, Dylan, it's just amazing. Like I did 17 exercise DVDs. Some of them is all weightlifting, really intense. And I built myself up, and I put my physical body, I was walking, I was doing like so much, intense workout, and I got myself back. And I am a proof that you should never ever give in and believe to what some professionals, whether it's doctor or chiropractor or whatever, are telling you, or psychiatrist for that matter.
See, and that's an interesting fact. I've had a similar situation. I tore both my ACLs after I came home from Afghanistan, one year apart. So I went through the whole process of overcoming that and then overcoming it again, right? Which is just crazy. It's a complete ACL reconstruction, somebody else's cadaver.
Can you break that down for us so we can go through this journey with you, how you did it and you...
Yeah, so I came home from Afghanistan about 2013 in February. And I was on leave. So when you go on leave, it's basically like paid time off from the Army, but you're still technically on duty, right? So I come home from Afghanistan. I'm home for literally 4 days, and I go to my first jiu-jitsu class back. And before that deployment, I was teaching jiu-jitsu there. So I was the kind of the head trainer and offering people like, the sessions, for the classes. And this gentleman that I'd never seen before, first time in the gym, gets on the mat with me, and we're rolling for probably 2 minutes, and we're doing a guard drill, and he stands up with my knee or with my foot and then falls back into a heel hook, which basically just shifts your knee out of socket, right? No warning, didn't have a chance to tap or anything like that. So my knee completely pulls out of the socket, tears my ACL instantly. There's no pain, right? It's just a massive pop. Feels traumatic because you're like, I know that's not supposed to happen, right? and I'm sitting there like in complete silence, like I don't know what to do here, right? My buddy, luckily, has been through multiple ACL tears, and he looks at me. He's like, I'm guessing you tore it, man. And I'm silent, like I'm defeated at this point. Like I'm looking at my knee, realizing that all of the hopes and dreams that I had after that deployment was to go to special forces, try out, start this career in special forces and just change the world, right? And none of that was going to be possible because I just tore my ACL, right? Like ACL in many careers is a completely career-ending injury for most people. And I stepped out, I made my calls. I was like, hey, I told my command, I'm like, I tore my ACL. I'm pretty sure, did the x-rays, and they all came back torn ACL, so about 2 weeks later, they sent me down to Fort Knox, right? This is after a year-long deployment in Afghanistan that I saw terrible things. I was in Kunar province, Afghanistan, which is not a kind place to be in. So I was already struggling with PTSD without telling anyone. I was just doing it on my own. And I'm going to a brand new base I've never been to, nobody that I knew within 500 miles, and I'm sitting there. And they, the process to get yourself fixed in the military, or the U.S. military, I should say, is long, arduous. You in process, you go through a bunch of paperwork that has nothing to do with your injury, and then you wait a month to go see the doctor, right? Because that's how far they're booked out. Whoa. You go see your doctor, and then your next appointment is a month out because they're that backed up, right? So I didn't actually get my surgery for 2 months. And then when I got my surgery, I was non-moving, right? I was stuck in bed. I was stuck, with a straight leg brace. I could barely walk. It took me, 15 minutes to walk the 14 steps to my bathroom and go to the bathroom and then go back and lay down, right? Like it's an injury that is extremely painful, excruciating at times. And I'm the kind of person that I'm not going to deal with drugs. Like they gave me like Percocet and Vicodin for my surgeries. And I said, no. Like I took the first one, and then the next day, and after that, I'm done. I'm not taking any drugs for this. I'll deal with the pain, because my father committed suicide when I was 6 years old, and he was a drug addict and a alcoholic. So, it's not good in my book. Right. Mm-hmm. So once I had my surgery, I'm sitting there, just reeling in my depression, my PTSD, just struggling with this entire outlook of my life, and seeing that all of the things that I thought I wanted to do are not options anymore. And in that moment, I'm sitting there realizing that, there's choices I can make. I can sit here and continue to overthink the lack of options that I have, or I can start to look at the options I do have. And that's when it kind of started to transition into, let's stop sitting, let's stop waiting, and let's start learning, because that's always helped you through anything in your life. Let's mm-hmm. learn, right? Maybe my body won't carry me through the rest of my life, but my mind can. My mind doesn't need legs to walk, right? So start reading. I started reading. I started paying attention to, especially motivation, realistically, like that, because there was times where I just needed something to get me through. So I started watching YouTube videos. I started, listening to podcasts. I started, reading books that developed the mind. And there was one class in particular that we had to take. It was either a finance class or a mindset class. And I walked into that mindset class, and this big black man. He had to be 6'5", 6'6", just a big. He looked like a linebacker. He's sitting there telling us, like, words are the impetus to transition, right? Mm-hmm. If you want to go anywhere, if you want to change your life, you need to start with the right words. So we're going to start with an action statement, right? And it doesn't have to be a long one. It doesn't have to be. It could be one word, it could be 2 words, doesn't matter. But then with that action statement has to go something that impacts you, right? Yeah. Starting with, like, for me, it was a quote. I wrote down a quote from Batman Begins, that helped me really define. I honestly don't even remember what it was, but it helped me really define the moment and realize that there was more to this this injury than just sitting and waiting, right? There's action that can be taken. I could sit here and make money sitting here waiting for the Army to eventually put me back home.
Yeah.
Or I could do something with it, and I started understanding and looking at words differently from that point on. And it was all because of an injury. It was a physical injury where I thought my body from the age of 23 everything before 23 was all focused on physical. I've got a great body. I'm going to go work with it. I'm going to go use it to the best advantage that I can. Mm-hmm. And I began to understand that your body is worthless, right? Your body will fail you again and again and again throughout your life until the day it literally stops working.
Yeah.
But your mind, unless you get to the point of dementia, will work until you're dead, right? It will continue to work. And the more you develop it, the more will come from it. The more you can manifest success, the more you can manifest, your own greatness, your own potential, the more you can take what you have and do something with it, and it was that injury that taught me to start using this rather than focus on the vessel that it comes in. And, everyone has their abilities, LeBron James has got a great body, like go for it. Right. But not everybody's LeBron James. Not everybody's Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo. Like we all have our specific skills, and let's be real. The human mind is the most common thing we all share that has the potential to make us great.
Yeah.
So I mean, like injuries, trauma, all of those things, all of that has the potential to create perspective. And if you don't take the time to really understand that, if you sit in this box, right, of you, right, because that's the biggest problem is we sit in our box. We don't talk to people about it. We don't tell people about it. We don't offer, like, here's my story. We sit in our box and we overthink all of the things we're missing out on, all of the things that we can't do. And we never realize that people have the ability to tell us exactly how impressive we are or incredible we are if we really ask them or if we really tell them about what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And that's what I do, right? Like I'm sure that's what you do as well, Sudi. Like we step in front of people and say, no, your trauma is something that has profound impacts on how much perspective you have. Mm-hmm. You have the ability to understand something people without trauma can't. And people without trauma might not be able to master the success that you can because you've been through the hardest things that human beings can go through. And that's how I look at it, right? And that's how I break it down realistically, is like all of the things that I've been through, because honestly, my ACL tears are the probably the easiest things I've had to go through. Mm-hmm. And it's breaking all that down and realizing the potential that they all give you is the incredible part.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautifully said. So, did you start, what was your next step? Did you start working, like ignoring what was going on and start working out? Or because I can see you're in a great shape right now.
Yeah. Well, not as great as I'd like to be, but I'm working on that. I have a sledding hill back here with a bunch of snow on it. I just climbed that about 15 times last night. What I did, and where it really began was looking at where I was in Fort Knox. I'm sitting there and I'm like, Fort Knox there's hundreds of veterans who have been to war and all have like war related wounds. I was one of the guys that didn't, right? There were very few of us, but I was one of the guys that I tore my ACL at home. Mm-hmm. Like for me, it was like, I don't feel like I deserve to be here. Right. And it's not necessarily true because I'm still a veteran. I still have a right to be there. But realistically, in my mind, I could have done this at home, right?
Yeah.
Send me hospital at home. I can do it there, right?
Yeah.
I don't deserve to take up a space for heroes, right? For guys that have been wounded in action in a war that I did fight in, but I wasn't hurt in, you know? And for me, it took a moment to think about it. And I was like, okay, I can use that. You're going to leave, right? You are going to work so hard because you don't deserve to be here.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go home and you're going to go earn your life there, right? But you first have to get out of here to give space for someone that does deserve it.
Yeah.
So that was that was me, right? Like it was that perspective of earning something. I was like, I need to get out of here, right? I need to deserve this, and I'm gonna earn it by continuing my career, right? And that's what I've done. Like I could have gotten out of the Army from that injury. I could have gotten out of the Army from the second injury or the third injury, you know, but I didn't. I kept going. I'm still earning everything that all the time I spent in Fort Knox. I feel like I'm still earning that.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just continually giving. And for me, it's about giving to the right cause. You know, I'm giving to Instagram. I'm giving to people right now. I'm giving my wisdom. I'm giving my respect to the warriors that have fought before me. I give to people to earn my place amongst them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not a hero. I don't profess to be any kind of incredible person. I'm just a man that's talking about the things that some people don't want to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
so, and where that inspiration comes from is creating the perspective that supports the direction, right? I wanted to go home, but I also realized that there are people that needed the space that I was in. So I created the perspective that both supported that and supported the direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I left, right? I was supposed to be there for a year, right? I got out of there in 7 months, right? I had surgery a month and a half in, and I was gone. I was literally gone in 5.5 to 6 months, right? And it was the fastest they had ever seen an ACL tear get out of Fort Knox, but I did it, right? And from then on, it was simple. It was looking at the direction I wanted to go, looking at where I was, and creating the perspective to dominate, right? Like I want to be a life coach. Okay, well, how do I be a life coach? You look at people and you show those people who they are. That's it, right? And then all I do, right? I don't act like I'm better than anyone else. I'm not, right? I'm just a human being showing people who they are. And it clearly makes an impact on people,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you want to be an asshole, you'll get what you pay for, right? But I'm not going to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I work on kindness, I work on empathy, I work on love. I help people and I give to people. And
Beautiful.
that's what inspires me.
Yeah. So here's what my experience as working, because I switched from personal trainer to become a life coach. It's been over almost like 20 some years that I'm doing the coaching. And I always see like when something happens is the way our mind translates that events, that did this event happen to me? Because the minute you think that something is happening to you, you're not empowering yourself, that message. But when you turn it around and you say, let me see how else can I give meaning to this in a positive way, and then we
Right.
look and say, that didn't happen to me, I created it. I created this event. And even if it's like a thriller movie, right? It's really scary and thriller, and I don't like it. But when I come to myself and I said, okay, I made this movie because I'm so into movies, Dylan. Like I
Yep.
love movies, right? I have
I'm the
written
same way.
to full scripts on screenplays and that stuff. And I'm always the way I talk about mind and ego and the soul is always in the movie scenes, right? So I often say, okay, so I made this thriller movie, right? And maybe someone will like it because many people like thriller movies or scary movies. But how can I change this and create a brand new movie that
Right.
is really to my liking, and then it will benefit and has more people to come and see this movie, right? So I change the meaning in my mind, and that's what I do in my coaching. Like, I really work with deep wounded traumas, emotional wounds, and that stuff. And let me tell you, Iranian people are really intense people. Oh my God.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. I've
Dylan,
had a few Iranian friends.
yeah. So you
Yeah.
know how we are, right? So for
Yes.
instance, I used to say a couple of years ago, I said, when I do a session with an American or someone who's from Europe, they might have one issue, and that one issue has damaged them during the whole life. When you're doing a session with Iranians, is like 10 to 20 issues and events, and then they say, so where should I start? I said, well, let's start from the beginning because it's like
Right.
so many things. So if you watch it, American movie or European movie is about one story. The whole time you're
Yeah.
watching one character, the major character, and one. When you're watching an Iranian movie, is like hundreds of events are happening so quickly that before you catch the first trauma, the next event, and so it's
Yeah.
much harder to work with Iranians but also I believe because the way we brought up in Iran, they somehow, the parents have so much more expectation of us
Yeah.
that we somehow have no choice to toughen ourselves up, you
Right.
know? So for instance, I lived in Europe for 5.5 years, and I see the way parents dealt with their kids. Like if the kid fall down, they go and they're like, oh honey, it's okay, let's kiss it and let's move on.
Yeah.
But in Iranian culture, if you fall down, it's like, it's your fault. What the hell are you doing, you clumsy, blah, blah, blah. Get up and get yourself moving. So it's totally a different. So that's why I think we go through a lot more traumas. But somehow, this is what I experience with every Iranians who I do a session. We are so blocked up in our emotional body that I keep asking, like, how did that make you feel? And then they talking about a solution or where they went wrong. I'm like, no, I'm not talking. We're not looking for a solution. I'm
Yeah.
asking about feelings, and we're so shut down in our feelings that nobody really understand the meaning of. So that's what I'm teaching now. Let's
Right.
feel and tap in to our feelings, right? So basically, when I'm talking to people, I said, okay, it's not the event or how intense or how little the event has an impact on you. It's about your translation and the meaning that you give it to. And
Right.
how can you make this a challenge? Because this, after all, every event, everything that we go through is become sort of like our biography or our background that we could be proud
Yeah.
of. I went through this situation and I came out of it. Oh my God, I'm so proud of myself. And then this event happened and I dealt with it the best way that I could. So I keep digging in, like, to change the meaning for people, because that's what I did. Even if before I was a coach or something, because I left Iran as a teenager on my own, and that was really tough. I moved out on my own. I came out with $1,000, and I promised myself that I'm gonna make my life on my own. I'm never gonna ask my mother or my relatives to give me money. So I really pushed myself hard, but it was that, I think, the positivity, the way I was looking at life, that give me the strength. I was self-motivated. So when I got into coaching, it was kind of, I would say it was harder for me, because it's like it being self-motivated, it was the attribute that I had. And I didn't know exactly how to teach it to other people. How do you deal with that, Dylan?
You cut out for about 15 seconds or so. I'm so sorry. I didn't hear that
No
last
problem.
15 seconds.
Yeah, so I was saying, because I was so self-motivated myself, when I became a coach, I kind of had a little issue of how to make it, break it down for others who are not self-motivated. What is your tactic? How do you deal with that? Or where do you start when people are more, we know they're fearful of whatever, but what are the tools you give them?
Well, I'd say most people are self-starters. They just don't understand it in a way that if they're finding people like you and me, that they do want it, right? They are here to talk to you. They are here to talk to me. That is in a way a start. Now, defining the path is realistically the hard part, because we as coaches are like, we're here, we're in our present place, and sometimes we can have a little bit of an ego in that moment and be like, it's simple, right? It's simple, just do this. But it's not that simple back then, right? And that requires you and me to like kind of go back into our experience in our life and reconnect with a little piece of us and go, that's what it felt like. For me, sometimes that's hard, right? Because going back, 20 years is not easy these days, because I have so much going on in my mind. So rather than focus on trying to connect with me again, empathy, right? Listening to understand. That's how I define empathy, right? So all I do is listen, right? Typically the first session that I have, I talk very little, right? I want to understand where you are. I want to understand everything I can about you and listen to exactly what you're telling me so that I can understand your perspective. And then from that point on, all I'm doing is I'm going to take your perspective. I'm going to tell you, this is how you look at it, correct? Yes. Okay. What if you did this? Right? And I shift it for them, give them back a package, and you say, open it up and tell me what you think. Right? And they, more often than not, people start to understand. Right? But the biggest thing that I do is I don't attempt to change people. I don't attempt to save people. I don't attempt to fix people. I used to think of myself as a fixer. I'm not, right? I'm just a person, right? You are your own fixer. You are your own changer, your own hero, you're your own savior, right? Like, and I look at you and I tell you, right? When you're in a session with me, I look at you and I say, Sudi, you have to change yourself. I can't do it for you, right? I can't do these things. I can show you the perspective. I can show you the path. I can tell you about my story. But at the end of the day, it is 100% up to you, because you have the complete picture of who you are. And all I'm looking at is this outside surface of a planet, right? Like, you want to look at yourself as the earth or the sun, right? We're just looking at the outside, right? You might pull out memories, but guess what? You're showing me your memories from your perspective, right? Memories are not a perfect representation of what you've been through. They are what you actually see them as. Things happen, and 27 different people are going to look at the events of yesterday 27 different ways. So I can't sit here and trust that I know exactly how your memory went and give you perfect advice to go on so that you are fixed. I can't do that. But you can, because you can start to mold it together. You can mesh it together. And all I do is give people a direction. I give people the right resources, the right books that say a perspective better than I can ever do it, right? Like when I deal with people with trauma, I push people to read books like Waking the Tiger and The Body Keeps the Score, which are two of my favorite books. I don't know if you've ever read them. Like,
No, I
if you
have
have,
not. I'm not a book reader, unfortunately.
oh, read them. I don't care if you're not a book reader, Sudi. If you deal with trauma, read both of them. They're incredible. I push people to those books because those books have an understanding of science of PTSD and the how it flows, right? How it works, right? That I can't recreate. I can't sit here and, read the whole book to you and show you, this is what PTSD looks like.
Mm-hmm.
The understanding and the perspective within those books offers you the ability to apply it to yourself, right? Mm-hmm. From that point on, then it becomes easier, right? Once trauma has actually been faced and dealt with, then self-starting is so incredibly easy for people, right? But until then, it's incredibly difficult because of what you just said to me about, Iranians, right? The idea that, we can't understand our feelings is a trauma-based issue. It's disconnection between the mind and the body, because how the mind actually remembers trauma is in fragments rather than a centralized memory, right? Mm-hmm. If you were sexually abused as a child, likely you don't remember the whole event. What you remember are the sight or the smell or the yellow wallpaper or the smell of that person, right? Like, you remember in pieces, and you have to put those pieces together to really get through it. And if you can't, right, there's ways you can, but it then fragments everything else in your life because you can't physically connect your mind and your body. So the sensations of me doing this and you doing it when you face trauma are different, right? I know what this feels like. You don't. You're like, I feel numb. I feel disconnected. I feel lost, right?
Yeah.
And it's because you can't recognize what your actual feelings are, is because your body has shut them down, right? And those books are what profoundly helps you understand what that means.
Mm-hmm. Great. Now, here's the thing, Dylan. Are you into energy healing? Do you believe?
I believe in it. I haven't myself pushed into it. So I recognize, right? Like, and I'll tell you a very short, like the Spark Notes version of my dad's suicide, right? When I was 6 years old, I remember coming downstairs and feeling something, right? Yeah. Like that intuitive response to a situation where you're like, this is not right. Mm-hmm. Nothing about this is right, right? My dad's standing there. He's talking to my mom, my sister, and me. And he's telling us, I've got a meeting tonight. Probably going to be gone all night. Won't see you until tomorrow, right? And that's pretty much what he told me in the short version. And I'm sitting there, reading his face, reading his body, and knowing that's not true. Like, I felt it in my bones. I'm like, that's a lie, right? Like, that's a lie. And he tells me he loves me. And I grab him, and I'm crying, like I'm telling him not to go. I'm 6 years old. I don't know what's going on. And I just like remember the cliche vision of him walking out the door, the front porch door closing, and him walking away, right? Like, that was the last thing I remember. But I knew, like, there was energy there. There was something there that was telling me that it was not right, right? So I absolutely believe, right? And there's science behind it, right? Like, Alan Watkins is a doctor over in the UK. There is a measurable effect of your heart, because your heart's an oscillator. It's 5,000 times more powerful than any other human organ. Yeah. Electromagnetic. Like, there's electromagnetic energy that physically impacts other people, right? In the rooms around you. Like, so if you're a terrible person, you walk into a room, people feel that, right? If you're a great person, right? Like a happy person. You walk in a room, people feel that,
Yeah.
right? And there's so yes, I absolutely believe in energy. I have not experienced the healing or the coaching or anything of that sort. I just understand it. It's real.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. So basically, um, for me, it was my experience with my father who has passed away when I was age 10. Exactly what you're saying. What is that thing? Because my dad used to go to north of Iran, and he used to do that. That was very often that he wasn't around. He was going, but that particular time is the same feeling. There's that knowing that
Yeah.
you feel it in your whole body that something is off. And for me, it was like, he shouldn't be going. And that's probably the last time I'm ever going to see my dad, right? So we
Yeah.
clinched and we crying. And it's like, what is the matter with you? But you can't
Right.
really express yourself because you're not sure. And then when my father passed away, because I was spending the summer at my sister, my nieces and my nephews are actually my, and 2 p.m there was a phone call that my brother-in-law picked up the phone, and I saw that tears came running down. He says, let's go to my sister. Your uncle has passed away, because my youngest uncle had cancer at that time, and we were expecting him to pass away in time. But I knew that those tears wasn't for my uncle. It was something else. But anyhow, we stayed there for a week and we played around. And then when we get back home, because as I'm telling you, Iranians are so intense that even a funeral can go on for a month. I mean,
Yeah.
after a week is the same as. So at 2 p.m., I felt like I'm tired. I lay down, and as soon as my head hit the pillow, I saw my father driving the car. He's smoking. The cigarette was in. I was actually in the car. There was some other guy sitting next to him. It's dark and this bright light. He loses his. I went through the event with him, and I was screaming like, no, don't, because somehow the door got open and he fell off and he hit his forehead. Now, what I'm saying is, who is doing this? Who is taking you through this event? How do you know? Who is that
Right.
voice that's give you the heads up that something is wrong? And I believe that's our higher self or our soul that knows the whole story. I mean, I believe, because when I had my near-death experience, when I left my body and I went up, I was sitting
Yeah.
with my guides, and I was choosing the lessons. What lesson am I going to go through? Being abused, being like mentally and emotionally abused. All of these things as a class I was choosing for planet Earth, that these are the classes that I'm going to take, right? So it was very clear when I got back that, oh, that's what happened. I mean, the death of my father opened up this class of abandonment issue, which I was
Yeah.
going through for many years. The abandonment issue led into codependency issue, and then
Yeah.
controlling and all this stuff. Okay, but here's the deal, that what I'm saying is, um, basically, when I got into this route of energy healing and that stuff, I tap into someone's energy field, and they don't need to tell me the trauma I go through that event, like I did with my father. So that's why I'm saying it's, um, for us, like right now, we heard your story, right?
Mhm.
I was fully engaged. I totally connected with you. And I was going through your experiencing and feeling it in my emotional body, right? Like,
Yeah.
you and I become one. And I just went, but if you wouldn't tell me this story, I already saw your story. I was seeing like what happened to you,
Yeah.
and that's what happened. Like when I do a session, I tap into the first event and they said, so where should I start? I said, how about age 4? Oh, that's when this event happened. And how about, so that's what in a way I'm saying that energy healing, or really tapping, being like getting totally out of our mind, because when I'm doing a session, my mind is not working. It's all from
Sure.
the emotional feeling. It's just the intuitiveness that you become one with them. So here's my question. If we use this approach, and I'm coming into your space, and we're going through this, and I'm getting this and clearing it in my emotional body, would you be healing through this process without taking any further actions, without even telling this person what is going on? What do you think?
And that's an incredibly interesting thought, because that's not how I work through trauma with people, but I'm incredibly empathetic, observant, and intuitive when I listen to people, right? Like when I walk up to a person, like I can just tell they're having a bad time, right? But I don't see it that way. Like I can't go into people and I can't tap into people, right? I know that. I'm self-aware enough to
And
know
how do
that.
you know, how do you know that, Dylan? How are you so sure? What makes you so sure?
Well, maybe I don't, right? I don't know what I don't know. That's for sure. I do know that,
Yeah.
but I've never done it, right? And maybe that's something that I can learn. I just know that I've never been able to. But I do have the intuitive sense to know when someone is hurting. Now, what I would say, and this is my logical brain, this is my understanding and rationale of what your question is I would say that someone being understood is always healing,
Mm-hmm. There
right?
you
So
go. Yes.
whether it's you taking them through, their own journey through your mind, or them just expressing, I think either way is so incredibly beneficial, right? Either way, like it honestly, it matters to us because we kind of want to develop a better path, but it doesn't matter to that person because all they need to do is be seen. They need to be heard. They need to be felt in some way. And that's, we do it in two
Yeah.
different ways, but what is important is that it works, right? And
Yes.
what works is being felt, being heard, being understood,
Yeah.
and not being judged for it, right? Like that's the beautiful thing about, especially what you do, is that you're feeling it with them. So how can you judge them? You're feeling it, right? So it's the simplicity of it is that there's no judgment there, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
same with me. Like I logically express rather than emotionally connect with them. Anyone that struggles with trauma, I logically explain, like, I'm not here to judge you. I don't know anything about you. I don't know your story. I don't know the choices that you've had to make. And that means I have no right to sit here and judge you for the choices you've had to make. I'm going to understand them. I'm going to look at your perspective, and I'm going to help you take a look at what those choices actually meant at the time. I'm not going to sit here and judge you. You made those decisions, right? Can't be changed. You're here, right? I'm proud of you for just being here, right? Like, and that's the language that I use, and I believe it, right? Like, it's not you're incredibly authentic. I'm incredibly authentic. I'm not trying to bullshit people. Like, I know how hard it is to be here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Oh
because
yeah.
at 25, I almost committed suicide, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
a reason I talk about suicide, right?
Yeah.
I know how hard it is to sit in this chair right now after 30 years of everything that I've been through. And I can't imagine, right? I can't even imagine what some people go through, right? I don't have people don't have the emotional capacity to imagine what the worst things people can go through are, because we're not that creative. The terrible, terrible people, the evil people like Adolf Hitler and Heinrich Himmler and Joseph Stalin and Mao Zedong, like those people had the creativity to hurt people in ways that normal people like you and me don't want to think about because we're not evil. We have evil in us. We think about evil things. Like, you know, if someone cuts us off in the lane, you're like, you know, like like you respond with anger, hatred, you know, but then it goes away, right? But people that are evil create things that are so evil that we don't have the creativity to think about, you know, and we are just here to help people understand themselves. We're here to show people that they're seen, that they're heard, that they're understood for maybe the first time in their lives, right? And that is healing, right? At its core.
So I think what I'm saying, Dylan, I'm bringing this gift as an invitation for you to tap into that part of you knowing it. Because, you know, like I always say, I said, I hardly read any books. I hardly listen to anybody, you know.
Sure.
I'm just being myself outside of the mind and ego, so empty of everything. So when I'm into that, whether we call it meditation, you know, whatever we want to call it, when we're able and capable to be, because I did many lectures about meditation and also mindfulness, you know, so mindfulness is a major, major thing. So when we're totally present in this moment with the absence of mind and ego, we tap into a different part of us. Because oftentimes, you know, like many times I do a session and then I'm guiding somebody and I said, I know that wasn't me. Where did that come from? You know, because I'm so empty and fully present that I'm just so merged into what this person is saying. And then the guidance is just like, it's not me. And it's always right down, because when you get to that, you say age 5, and oh, this is when my father was trying to kill my mother, this or this. And you're always, even today, after so many years and God knows so many sessions, I'm still in awe when something so profound is being said to someone that is just right on and is just like so opening, understanding, and the healing. And every time and each time is different. So there's no recipe of how you deal with each individual, because everything is happening in real time. So
Sure.
I'm grateful. I take your suggestion for reading those books. But what I'm saying is, a lot of time I'm saying, we don't need any more information. We've actually bombarded with so many information coming. We should go the other way by emptying ourselves, by emptying our minds, by emptying of everything. And then we can tap into our inner peace, that quiet part that is the whole knowing. Like, oh, I know this. Oh, I know that. Because it happens sometimes that people send me stuff from, you know, from some Indian gurus, and that's what I'm saying. Oh, I knew that. I know that, you know. It's
Yeah.
like, but when we think about it, because being one, when we talk about, like, in our mind and ego, we separate ourselves from everybody else and all the events, and then we get into that judgment that they're good or they're bad or they did wrong. But when we understand and coming from that place of oneness, then you are me and I am you, and what you experience, I have experienced, and the whole collective humanity is merged inside of us. Then I don't, maybe my trauma then becomes so small when I'm the wholeness, right? So when I'm identifying with all the other souls, and I understand the difficulty of this school being airplane, so tough and so hard, and all of these. Then when I understand, when I'm tapping to everybody, I'm thinking, oh my God, my issues and my problems and my traumas and my stories are so small because everything is within me. Then my focus kind of totally shift away from me to this big lens that is about everybody else. And by switching, wouldn't you think we heal automatically when we get out of our own lens and our own individual story, and then we tap into collective consciousness and collectively?
Hard question. That is a hard question. Because, I read more information. I read a book by Carl Jung. There's an old psychotherapist, I want to say.
Yes, I know him.
The undiscovered self, right? And he talks about society versus the individual, right? Like if you allow society to have all the power, then the individual becomes useless, right? The idea of the individual becomes useless because the idea of an individual is counterproductive to what society needs, right? And you can kind of look at that right now as like, democracy is in government is quite literally being limited by the idea of an individual, right? Like one individual is causing all of this problem. Yeah. All of these problems in society, right? Whether you believe in him or not, doesn't matter, right? Like the idea is that it's happening, right? Now, what I think happens when you take all the individuality, right? And I think Carl Jung would agree with it, is that when you take away all individual understanding, you take away, worth in a sense. And you can replace that certainly with, worth within the society. But what happens when there is, what happens when judgment is involved, right? Like I look at human beings fundamentally from a neutral lens. I try to, as much as possible. I try to remain unbiased and neutral. We are good and evil, right? Mm-hmm. We are good and bad, right? We are hurtful and we are healing, right? And if you only believe they're healing, then how do you explain the hurtful ones, right? Like if you only believe they're hurtful, then how do you explain the healers, right? Mm-hmm. They're both. And if that's true, like if humanity is both of these things, if they're both good and evil, then when you create a oneness of society or oneness in general, then what are you talking about a balance between good and evil, or are you talking about eliminating evil and only maintaining goodness? Like what does that oneness look like? Because easily when you drop everything, like I see it on TikTok all the time. Like I have a video that went like 2.5 million views, right? And it's not something that people, I don't think it inspired a lot of hate, but there were people that came on that video and told me hurtful things and hateful things. Like, why, right? Like nothing needed to be said, right? But so they did.
What did you say there, Dylan?
It was basically, I had been away from home. So I actually recently came home from deployment, actually 2 deployments. So I was deployed to Afghanistan last year for, almost just over a year. And then I immediately came home, and about 4 months later, I deployed around the state of Wisconsin to help with COVID. Yeah. So I've been gone from home for 3/4 of my marriage, right? I got married in September of 2018. I deployed in November of 2018, got home December of 2019, and then deployed again in May, right? So I was gone for a majority of my marriage. And I was just, it was a video with the song Home by, I can't remember, but It's just a tale of, just a movie trailer of it's a struggle to be home or to be away for that long, and then I'm just trying to go home, right?
Yeah.
And then people express hate. Like there's like 7,000 some comments on it, and 99% of them are good, but there's still 100, 200 hateful comments of things that didn't need to be said, right? So like, and I look at that like that's a real thing, and there's always going to be judgment. There's always going to be jealousy. There's always going to be blame. No matter, even people that are healed have the potential for hate and judgment and these human things that are not good, but they do them. And when we talk about oneness or wholeness or society or however you want to call it, what do you do with that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's my question, because our individuality is what allows us to look at ourselves. And this is my opinion, obviously, but it allows us to look at ourselves and understand that that negativity, that evil side of us is not who we want to be. We have the potential for it, but we can say no, right? We might make the mistake of engaging it, but we want to stay on the good side. We want to stay on the worthful or the worth side of society, of oneness and wholeness and all of it. But we still have the potential for this. And it's a constant battle, I'd say, is that we're always trying to toe the line of being good and staying away from evil, right? And this is why we have religions that talk about this in depth.
Yeah.
It's a hard question, like you certainly don't ask easy questions, Sudi.
I told you Iranians are intense. I am more intense. So
I love it.
let me add this part, Dylan. Stay with me. In my teaching, I often say that everything in universe is duality, right? We are born as twins, right?
Right.
So let's divide us as human, and the right side, we have this camera, which is the mind, and the ego is standing behind this camera, operating. So this is one movie. When the mind is doing the whole creation and the ego is the one who's operating, is the director. So these two are writing our stories and blah, blah. On the left side, there is the heart, and the soul is behind this movie, which when we come through the left lens, heart is just loving, is pure love and light, and there is no judgment there. So therefore nothing is translated as bad and good or right or wrong. So this is just, everything is experience. Like I'm experiencing this or I'm experiencing this, everything. Nothing is translated, and no one is translated as good or bad, because I believe when people, human being, they come in interaction, they can, by their energy either is very flowing together, is in harmony, so they pull out the best of that person, or they're clashing, their energies are clashing, and they can take the worst out. So each human being has multiple. When we left lens, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we're good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
We
still
kind
a
of
little
cut
bit,
off with.
still a little bit buggy, but I think I can see it for the most part.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, this is going to be totally a different movie, because when I'm coming from the soul, the left part, everything is understood. Like I'm not I'm not being bothered with anybody. Nobody is doing anything to me intentionally. And when someone does something, I'm coming from a higher lens, looking from a total lens of understanding. So I don't get mad, I don't get upset, I don't get irritated, and therefore, if someone does do something wrong, I can forgive them. Forgiveness happen from that lens automatically because they don't know. I mean, there people are trying to do their best. So this is what I'm saying. Like when we know these two different characters and these two different lenses and the way which side are we coming. So to me, mindfulness is that I am aware of the right lens, which is the ego and the mind. And whenever I come to myself, I made it very simple. You want to know which lens you're coming from, ask yourself, tune into your body and see how you feel. How do you feel? And that's the indication. If you're all loving acceptance, you're doing your work, but you without any judgments, you're just doing it heartful with your full heart. But if you're coming from the other side, all you have to do is just to be aware that you're operating from the right side and switch yourself to the right, left side and look at it through that camera and lens, and then see the right side becomes quite silent and quiet. What do you think about this, Dylan?
Well, I think if it was that simple, I think we'd have a much happier world. But getting to that is the curiosity for me. Is how does that happen? Right? That I mean, realistically, it's probably the same question that we both have is because that's what we do, right? Like I know, like it's very simple for me. Is like I'm sitting there thinking about, like, I just made a mistake. Like I'm sitting there and I'm like telling myself, you know, the old voices that I used to have of like, you're a failure, you're worthless, and I'm sitting there like with, you know, the other half
Yeah.
of the brain
So
telling me
who is saying
you're
that,
wrong.
Dylan? Dylan, who is saying that?
Oh, well, I mean, that's to me, it's a habit, right? It's a representation of a habit that formed because of things like my father leaving, right? It was the voice that was created in survival mode to, in a sense, survive, right? Like that kind of voice looked at that situation and said, you're a failure because you didn't save him, right? You're worthless because he left, right? And those voices just retained themselves because there was no, you know, contradicting thought at the time, you know. And then mindfulness came along for me. It was perspective started happening, and I started reaching different people and understanding, you know, for me, it was information. I read, you know, over 100 books, you know, in a year or two, and I started to recognize the thoughts. And, you know, now I hear those thoughts, and there's no power to that, right? Like when I think, you know, you messed up, I'm automatically thinking like, yeah, well, that happens. Like, duh, like get over that, right? Like, yes, you messed up. Now, what is your solution, right? Like, you don't have to sit there and wallow in this idea that you're a
Yes.
failure or worthlessness or
But
any of these
Dylan, I'm
things.
sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Now, the voice that is saying you made a mistake and making you wrong, you know that's the right lens, the ego mind, right? So,
Certainly.
in your awareness, since you are so aware right now, when the voice is saying that, can you right away switch to the left lens, which you are that ego that's looking from the top and seeing the whole story? When you have the
Immediately.
whole picture, isn't it, doesn't everything make sense to you that, oh, I have chosen this class. Oh, I know why that happened. I wasn't
Yeah.
supposed to stop him. He made a choice. he actually did that. I mean, since I have written this script, he actually did that to give me the opportunity to go through this class of worthiness and lovingness,
Right.
loving myself, right? So isn't it possible that just by switching it from the right lens to the left lens?
Yeah, but how do you inform people that? Because I yes, I can do that instantly. That's why I can't feel I can't feel like a failure anymore, or worthless, or like how I used to feel, like a burden, right? I can't do it because instantly my mind switches and I say, empathy, right? And that's what I attribute it to, is I listen to that and I realize where it comes from, right? It's the perspective of me looking at what I've been through as a whole and recognizing the need for those choices, right? And I've done the work to build that up and to create that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But to people that have not done the work, and this is why I tell people that they need to do the work, is, to the people that are going through trauma,
Yeah.
where does that perspective, where does that other side of the brain simply switch on, right? What point, right? Because I don't think it's that simple, right? And from my experience, I've never seen someone do it in a day. I've never seen someone do it in a month. I have clients that
It's
are
a
doing it
daily
faster.
practice, Dylan. Yeah, it comes
Right.
by awareness. That's the teaching first, and by repeating. Like, for instance, for me, I keep repeating this. Like, I started a free webinar, and I keep repeating this, and then more and more people listen to it, and then I do like 21-day challenge, right? 2 months
Yep.
challenge that we have to be aware constantly. So if we start doing the teaching and then keep inviting and then circulating it, so more and more people will eventually something. As my experience, this has worked really well, because once we come to that understanding and awakening, then it comes to discipline to do this every day, day after day. And that's why my mission is to have this group on Instagram and all my social media platform, to create a tribe that we are helping one another as soul sisters and brothers. And then when somebody goes down, we are together, we boosting them up, reminding them. And that's what I think that's one of the way, I mean, that's at least the way I'm going about, and I think it would be helpful.
You cut out for just a little bit. I think I caught the majority of it, but yeah, I mean, that I'm very, very similar, right? Like I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to create, if I could have 7.5 billion people in my tribe, I would, realistically. And that's my goal, is to bring an awareness and an understanding to these ideas that you and me are talking about, right? Like, I wish everyone could have these kinds of discussions, but I see the difficulties with so many people, with having the disconnection that trauma causes, and the lack of connection to a sense of self and individuality, because people live in these environments. Like, I'm finishing my book very shortly. It's called Defy the Darkness, and within that book is a formula, right? It's not an all-intensive formula. It's not like a perfect equation of what fixes life. It's an understanding of life, right? Like, I look at life as the experiences that we have, plus the environments that we have lived through, or lived in and lived around over time, right?
Yeah.
And time is more or less a constant. There's so many dimensions to it, but it's not just the experiences, but there's multiple dimensions to the experiences. There's the physical experiences and the cognitive experiences, and there's the physical environments and the cognitive environments. And we're looking at this equation, and that explains where we are, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can look at your physical experiences and your cognitive experiences, add them up with the environments that you've been through and the cognitive spaces that you've built for yourself, and you can look at them over time and begin to understand where you are in life and start to grasp this understanding of who you are back then, now, whatever. You can add them all up and create this picture of who you are. Um, and it's just a mathematical way of looking at us, right? Like the, therapy or life coaching or even a good friend can really understand people from with that equation. You can look at the physical experiences. You can even understand some of the cognitive experiences, and you can understand the environments. Like people can tell you about these things, and you can learn about them over time. Like you can understand what it was like to grow up in the 90s versus growing up in the 2000s,
Yeah.
but what we can't understand, and this is me, this is my opinion. I think you might disagree a little bit. I don't think we can truly understand the cognitive spaces that we create, right? I don't think other people can understand the cognitive structures that I've built in my mind. You can understand the general understanding in the context of what I talk about, because I clearly and try to clearly explain with, as many words as I possibly can, right? But no one will ever understand exactly what I've built,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's no way that someone can step into my mind. We don't have the technology yet. I don't think maybe it's possible in the future. I don't think people can step into my brain and tell me, wow, like here's your castle, right? Maybe someday, but not yet. And I think that is our struggle right now, is that we have this world full of people that are disconnected through trauma, through abuse, neglect, abandonment. And when they are abandoned, when they are abused, when they are traumatized, they create these cognitive spaces, right? They make choices, right? They make external choices, they make internal choices, and they create a space within themselves that allows them to survive, right? They make good choices, they make bad choices, it doesn't matter. They make choices.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings them to this point, and it brings them to where they are now. And I help people understand how to look at those cognitive spaces and create an understanding for themselves. Because realistically, I don't think I need to understand someone's cognitive space to help them understand themselves, but they do, right? And that's my opinion. Like I said, I think you would probably disagree, and that's fine, right? Because I think we both help people, and that's the beautiful thing about life, is that
It's
we
good
can
to
disagree.
disagree, Dylan. It's always
Right.
good to disagree.
Exactly.
I'm
Right.
loving this. Yes.
Absolutely. And it's good to have a conversation with people that you can disagree with
Mm-hmm.
and still appreciate, right?
Yeah.
Like I appreciate absolutely what you do.
And I appreciate what you do. Dylan, I'm sorry, I have to go, but here's the deal. Would you like to continue our chat on Sunday? I'm doing my webinars usually on Sundays, and this Sunday is going to be, the topic is about abandonment issue. Are you free, and would you like to join, or would you like us to do it another day?
We should do it another day,
Okay.
because Sundays are usually my day I usually do meetings on Sundays. I do like one day of a weekend. So Sundays are usually pretty busy for me.
Okay.
But we absolutely should continue this. This is incredible. I greatly appreciate you offering this to me.
Sure, me too. Beautiful. Okay. So I'm going to Hawaii on Monday, but that should be fine because I'm going to have access to everything. So we arrange for one of the days from there, maybe Wednesday or Thursday, and we catch up. And I think intuitively, I'm feeling that we should merge and continue our lives once a week, because I think together we can help more people to merge and help out more people?
Once a week would be kind of hard because I am incredibly busy right now, but maybe once a month, I think that would definitely work for me.
Hmm.
Because
Okay.
I like right now I'm trying to finish a book, which is a process within itself, right? Start a business, actually kind of start two businesses right now.
Beautiful.
Obviously be a father, and just I've got the army still, so I like my time is insane. I've also got, TikTok that I've got to deal with. So once a month, I think, just to be honest, I think that would be much more manageable for me. And
That
I
would be
love the
fantastic.
idea. Love the idea.
So how many months is your wife now?
What do you mean?
Isn't she, is
Oh
it
no, like no, we have a 9-year-old. Sorry.
okay?
Yeah.
I kind of thought that you meant like she's
No.
pregnant now.
No.
Okay, got
No.
it. Yeah. Okay, beautiful. So we arrange it. Thank you so much, and we'll chat with you soon.
Thank you so much, Sudi. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Yep.
Have a beautiful
Bye.
day. Bye,
See ya.
guys. Thank you for joining us. See you soon. Bye bye. Bye, everybody. See you on Sunday.